Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here for today's webinar, Maximizing Your ROI with Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain Update 10.0.44. I'm Aaron Klein, the Marketing Director here at Avantiico. We've got a great lineup of experts with us today, each bringing valuable insights to help you prepare for this update. Director of Managed Services and Strategic Initiatives, Chris Barbera, will kick things off with a breakdown of the 2025 One Version Update cadence and best practices. Dynamics 365 Finance Consultant and Director of Business Applications Consulting, Brandon Nash, will walk us through key new and enhanced features in D365 Finance. And finally, Senior D365 Supply Chain Consultant Michael Kavanaugh will cover the latest enhancements and updates in D365 Supply Chain Management. Now, Chris will be taking over here shortly, but before we dive into today's session, I'd love to share with you some of the other exciting webinars that we have coming up. So, first, on June 17th at 10 a.m. Pacific, join us for Freight Invoice Accuracy, boosting ROI with automated freight reconciliation in Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain. In this session, we'll show you how our solution for automating freight reconciliation within D365 F and SCM helps recover lost revenue, eliminate manual audit bottlenecks, while integrating seamlessly with the TMS of your choice. Learn how to gain real-time visibility, catch hidden overages, and bill back clients or carriers with confidence. Then, on June 18th, 10 a.m. Pacific, don't miss Dynamics 365 F and SCM licensing and security enforcement. What's changing, what's at stake, and what to do now. I hope you're aware that starting on November 1st, unlicensed Dynamics 365 F and SCM users will be hard blocked from core applications, a soft block preceding that hard block. And this webinar breaks down exactly what's changing, how to assess your current license setup, what steps to take now to stay compliant and avoid costly disruptions. So if you're managing Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain licenses or involved in renewal decisions, this session will help you reduce risk, control costs, and ensure uninterrupted access for your team. And then finally, June 24th, 10 a.m. Pacific, we'll be covering streamlining year-end close or financial year-end close and consolidation in D365 Finance, powered by AMCS, an embedded D365 solution built to simplify complex accounting. Join Yannick Schuler to learn how AMCS helps finance teams accelerate year-end close, streamline intercompany eliminations, and automate multi-entity consolidation. Built for organizations navigating complex financial structures in D365, this session highlights automation that reduces manual effort, increases accuracy, and gives finance teams more control. We'll have more events and webinars added to the calendar throughout this year, right? So do be on the lookout for those, and don't hesitate to pop in chat anything that you'd like to see from us in the future. We'll make sure that all the registration links for these events are available in the chat. They're, of course, on our website and linked within this deck. And then one last note is, as we go through the presentation, do not hesitate to pop questions into chat. We'll cover them as we can throughout the presentations or address them in the open Q&A at the tail end. And with that, Chris, please do take it away.
Great. Well, welcome, everybody. I saw a lot of familiar faces and names joining, so it's great to see everybody. And I also hear we have people as far away from Australia, so it's great to have a great diverse group joining us today. So today we are going to talk about what's coming out in Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain version 10.044. Again, my name is Chris Barbera. I run managed services here at Avantiico. So I'm going to go over some of the service update highlights, how Microsoft announces the updates in a roadmap format, service update concepts, a recommended schedule to actually implement 10.044. And then at the end, I'll talk about how we're offering to anyone on the call a free service update roadmap planning session. It's about an hour, and we'll get to that at the end here as well. So let's move on here. Oh, so one other thing I want to mention, we're going to send this deck out if you're interested afterwards, so no need to scramble notes. I am going to go through my portion pretty quickly because I want to get to the great finance and supply chain content of the individual features coming out in 44 as well. Okay, great. Let's go next slide. Excellent. Okay, great. So for a few that may be new to these concepts of Microsoft also produces, before you actually get the service update, they put out a 6-month roadmap of what's going to be coming out in their business applications beyond just Dynamics 365 finance and supply chain, but also things like Copilot Studio, field service sales, and things like that as well. So those come out 2 times a year. One covers April through September, and the second October through March. So we are now into kind of wave 1. We didn't cover this in our last quarterly session about the updates because it hadn't been dropped yet. But it is a very interesting tool to go and look at what's coming out over the next 6 months. You can see the link there. I know it looks like an unusual link, but it's just a shortcut for Microsoft, the aka.ms release planner. And you'll be able to see all the things that are coming out planned. When it's going to actually be implemented through a service update, that's when we'll include it in our webinar. So the things that are in wave 1 that will actually be dropped during 10.044, we'll be talking about those today if we think they're important to highlight. Okay, and then you'll see the remainder of those for wave 1 come out in the September release. I will mention that some of the dates that Microsoft provides here are a bit aspirational, or maybe just for a preview date. So we evaluate that to see if it's really time to start looking at the features, if they're really there and ready for most of our customers to start using. If you can go to the next slide here. Okay, perfect. So this is what it looks like if you go onto that link. You'll see a list of, I'll just go back one there. You'll see kind of a layout of what's coming out for Microsoft, a good documentation button for details around it, what the business value is of implementing some of these features. And then, as I mentioned, some of the dates that are on the right, you'll see the early access date, public preview date, and then when they plan to have it generally available. Again, these are somewhat aspirational. What's also interesting, if you go to the site, you can also set up your own planner. So we'll say something like My Planner at the top. So you can actually look through all the features and highlight which ones you think are most important for you, and it will kind of help track those as they're coming out if you want to get updates instead of looking through the entire schedule. So that's a good feature and just something to keep in mind if you want to see what's coming out in the kind of the roadmap scenario. All right, let's go to the next. Okay, so now on to the individual service updates. And today, again, we're talking about version 10.044. This version was scheduled to come out tomorrow, but Microsoft actually released it early, so I think it actually dropped Tuesday of this week. So what's in these service updates for people that are not familiar? There are new features. So within your subscription, you're getting new features as part of that. There's also platform updates. So these are things, not such like features, but enhancements to the UI or user experience. Think of things that improve performance, perhaps the UI, sorting, filtering, things like that. If anybody's been using the application for a while, remember there used to be an X in the top right to close the window, and now there's a little arrow on the left. Things like that would be platform updates. There's also regulatory updates. So if a couple of years back we had a change to the 1099 format, that's considered regulatory update, and Microsoft put out an update for that prior to the next year so that the format be correct. In this roadmap for these coming 6 months, there are a few, mostly around Europe. There's some electronic invoicing format changes for Europe, and then Turkey has some localization changes, I believe, for billing or government reporting as well. They also depreciate features or remove features in these service updates as well. The good news, typically they're being replaced with something new or enhanced, so that you really typically won't be missing that feature. And then, of course, there's also what Microsoft likes to say, quality updates, which is really the word for bug fixes, of course, that's inherent in every software, and those things are resolved in a lot of these updates as well. So you may also hear us say one version, or Microsoft refer to these updates as one version updates. That really is just a name saying how they brand it to say, essentially, we want everybody on the current version of the software or at maximum on one version behind. And I'll talk about how they enforce that here in a minute. So our goal today really is there are hundreds and hundreds of updates for each of these service updates, changes and features, platform updates. Our team, our excellent team here that's on the call, has gone through these hundreds of updates and just really distill this down to the list we think is most important for everyone to look at. Again, we still encourage you to look at the individual updates from Microsoft because your industry may be unique or different and there may be something in there useful for you. But I think this is a great place to get started. And as I mentioned, we're going to be doing these, or we have been doing, and we continue to do these every quarter before the service update comes out. So always look for the schedule. And we're, of course, always happy to have you on the calls here with us and impart this information. All right, next slide, please. All right, great. So there are 4 published updates per year for these major updates. Again, I mentioned they have quality, platform, regulatory, and new feature updates. It's important to know that you can only skip one update at a time. So that means if you skipped, for example, here, 10.043, this update right now, 10.044, is required. It will go in automatically if you don't do anything, which I don't recommend. I'll talk about that in a minute. So again, pretty much every customer is either at least taking 2 updates a year, and some of our customers choose to take 3 or 4, and that's because either they want to have these updates sooner to their systems, or taking more updates gives you a lot more flexibility in when you actually take each of these updates. So let's say it's about half and half. Half our customers currently take every other update, and the other ones take every update. And we have a few that take 3 as well. Great. So Microsoft also published the schedule out now through Q4 of 2026. So for any of our existing customers on the call, you probably have your roadmap already set up through October of 2025. In the last 30 days, they just published it out through 26. So we'll be in contact with you guys to put together a schedule for all the way through the end of next year as well. So it's very important for customers who are not familiar with this, do not wait for an auto update. Microsoft will update your system whether you like it or not. And what will happen is you have to consider that you have ISV add-on solutions, you have customized code, you have configurations, and some of these new features will be turned on by default or mandatory. And that may result in instability or issues with being able to use your system. You do not want to find that out the day it goes into goes live. So we very much recommend that you put together a good schedule and conduct thorough testing and have a plan for putting these together. I like to say auto updates are great for an iPhone, not so great for enterprise applications. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next slide here. Okay, so let's talk through what this schedule actually looks like for version 10.044. What I'm showing you here now is assuming this update is mandatory for you and you have the most optimal settings in Microsoft Lifecycle Services to give you as much time as possible to get these updates in. Okay, so first here along the bottom, these are the dates for the Microsoft update. The general availability date was published for tomorrow. It's for the Friday, but actually it's actually got released a little bit earlier. So I think Tuesday of this week. So you have 2 auto update windows for 10.044. If this is mandatory for you, you can skip the first window that will be paused. If you're an Avantiico managed services customer, we've already done this for you, so you're already paused out. You don't need to worry. We already have the right lifecycle services settings for you. But if you're doing this on your own, it's just important to note that. The second auto update window cannot be paused. These updates will occur whether you want to or not on these dates if this version update is mandatory for you. So again, it's important to have a plan. Okay, go one forward here. It should show the top. Okay, so here's what Avantiico recommends. First, you should already be reaching out to your ISV partners to ask them, hey, I'm moving to 10.044. Is there any software updates we need from you to implement during this time? So if you're using things like FastPath, Blue Horseshoe, a tax solution, it's important to reach out to those partners and make sure that you can get an update from them if it's needed to maintain compatibility to 10.044. So we recommend on Monday to start, this is your earliest date to start your code merge. And then we recommend you use a maximum about 7 weeks to get this update into production. So that is, checking your custom code, making sure your ISV solutions are in there, moving through the correct functional testing, and then getting that into production by 7/25, or that following Monday, I think it's 7/28. So you can see that the first auto update window is 8/9. So you may be saying, why is there this 2 weeks in here? Well, we recommend having a 2-week contingency buffer in here so you don't get right up against the auto update. We only have to look back to mid-2024 with that CrowdStrike issue where all crazy things happened. IT departments are scrambling to try to recover from major issues. Now, while none of our customers experienced D365 down, their IT teams were busy working on other issues, so they weren't ready to move to production on that weekend. But this 2 weeks gave us that flexibility to be able to reschedule without being right up against that window. So we do recommend considering that as well. Okay, next slide here. Okay, again, we'll send this deck out, but if you are interested in looking up what the changed features are and the updates for 10.044, this slide will give you a list of all the links you can look at. As you can see, it's spread out all across Microsoft. There's not one comprehensive place, which is really why we do this webinar, because we do look through all these locations to come up with this list. there are also a few sublinks within this as well. So we won't go through this, but just know this will be in the deck for you to look at if you like.
Hey, Chris, quick question from Peter. What is the difference between window 1 and window 2?
Sure, we can just slide back 1 or 2 slides here. There is essentially no difference. So you can always pause window 1 if it's mandatory, and if the service update is mandatory for you, window 2 can't be paused. The rationale between this is potentially that Microsoft either wanted to load balance the number when updates were occurring. It also, I believe Microsoft's thought process on this is there was a time, and I'll go through this very quickly. There was a time where they had lowered the threshold or the time between the generally available date and the auto update date that was unreasonably short. They did this, I think, in the beginning of 2024, and there was such backlash. I think what they did is they created a second update window, but essentially you could just always pause the first. I think that's the explanation on it. It was just a quick fix on to be able to accommodate having a longer schedule without Microsoft making major changes. But I don't know their full thought process on that. Great. Let's move forward here. Okay, so I think we are now on to the finance highlights. Brandon will be taking over. At the end of the webinar, if we have time, I will be offering an opportunity for you to get your own roadmap created, whether you're an Avantiico customer or not. We'll essentially have an hour call with you, go through your busy seasons, what version you're on now, check your LCS settings, and be able to put together a full schedule for you. But I'll talk about that at the end. And then if you're interested, you can just type in roadmap in the chat, and we'll make sure we get back to you. But more on that at the end if we have time. Great.
All right. Sounds like I'm in the batter's box.
All right.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, both you and Aaron. Good morning, everyone. So the finance highlights that we're going to talk about throughout this presentation regarding the 10.0.44 new features is all about kind of some of the automation and being able to improve performance in D365. I'm going to do a combination of demonstrations as well as talk through some screenshots to show you some of those new highlights and new features that are going to be available to you when you make the move to upgrade your version of D365. A lot of cool features. Aaron, you can go ahead and move to the next slide. We're going to jump right into it because we're going to be going through a lot of different topics, a lot of different functions, and I want to try to get to everything and kind of show you guys what's happening as we get to this new version of D365. One of the first things that I thought was a really cool feature was being able to now have prepayments associated with a customer invoice. If you're familiar with D365, you know this is a function that has always been a part of the procurement process when you're using purchase orders, and let's say your vendor requires you to put a down payment, you can track that through the prepayment process associated with the purchase order. Well, now that functionality has come to the sales orders side of the house within D365, and it follows a lot of the same functionality within D365 when it comes to the prepayment process. You have to have a number of different configurations in place. We're not going to talk about those configurations in detail today, but know that there are some number sequences, there are some things around your inventory posting profiles, all those different areas that tie to your supply chain management functions within D365 and managing sales orders. But like I said, this feature is available to you now. I'm going to go through a demonstration of showing you what this feature looks like in D365 so that as this shows in the bullet points there, right, it'll help your improve cash flow, integrating your prepayments with your sales order. So I'm going to take the screen share for a moment and walk you through this process here.
While you jump into the demo or while you get that queued up, there's a question about if it's applicable for free text invoices as well, Brandon.
No, it's not. This is limited to the sales order process, similar to your similar to like purchase order prepayment. So not just like prepayments are not really applicable with the with like an AP invoice, unless you use the the different posting profile in an invoice. Okay, so let's go right into it. So you can see I have my sales order here, this open sales order. So as you saw in the screenshot, under the invoice tab is where those menu items are, but you have to go into the details of the sales order in order to see those prepayment proposal options. And that's what you see right here. So if you want to require your customer to require a down payment before they make a purchase, for example, we're going to be selling 8 different Office Pro iPads or whatever, tablets for 1900, and we want to require our customer to put down a down payment of some sort. You can record this prepayment proposal function within the system to be able to do that. And similar to the
Brendan, I don't see your screen up
oh,
there.
I thought it was up a second ago, or at least I thought it was, but sorry about that, everyone.
There we go.
Okay,
Can you
thank
guys see
you.
me now? Okay,
Yeah, thank you. Thank
awesome.
you.
Yep. So what I did was I was in the sales order detail form, just so you're aware, right? Showing that we're going to be selling 8 Surface Pros to our customer, and we want to require our customer to give us a down payment. So we go into the prepayment proposal form here. You can see we can select the prepayment type. So if we want it to be a percent or a fixed amount, so if we say we want them to put down 30% of this, so that way we have an initial start, that's what we can define. Or you can define a fixed amount, and they'll tell you what to make that fixed amount. So it gives you a couple of different options. And then there's the sales category. So this is now a configuration that would need to have happened in the background prior to it, similar to like your different posting profiles where you have to set your accounts that will track that receivable before it's actually revenue and so on. So here is my sales category, and now I want to save that. Oh, because I changed that amount to fixed. Okay, so now you can see it tells us what that prepayment amount is going to be, and we have our prepayment invoice, and we hit save, and now we can go back. So now we want to create the invoice. So this is before receipt, this is before shipping, this is before, we actually record the final invoice to the vendor. We're going to record what's called a prepayment invoice, similar to the purchasing process. And you can see the prepayment status is set to open, and this is where we want to be able to post this transaction. Okay. So once we come in here and we just click post, so this lets us know that it's been posted, and now you can see the status says updated to pending. So once that has updated to pending, now we want to actually process the payment that we would eventually have received from our customer. So I'm just going to go into a separate tab here, navigate over to my AR area, and process the customer payment journal for this customer. And of course, we're not going to get into details on how you enter your customer payments, but there's obviously a multitude of ways to be able to do that. So let me just pop in my customer that I have that prepayment for. Here's that prepayment invoice. And this is just going through the manual process just to show you what that looks like in the system. Oh, it's not what I wanted to do. And here, just to show you with the view marked transaction, you can see there's the details for the prepayment that we're going to be posting. And I hit post. Okay. So now we have that. And if we come back to our prepayment invoice and within our sales order, I'm going to refresh the form. And now you can see that the status here is updated to received. And that just lets you know that it's been received. And now we can process this as expected. And then what we can see here in D365, right, is if we go to our customer master record, just to kind of give you traction on what's happening in the background so that you know that all your accounting is in place correctly. So here's our payment right here. So it was a payment, and then this was our prepayment invoice that was settled against that. So those two are already posted to the transaction or to the customer's account. So when we go and process the final invoice for this prepayment and for this order, we should expect to see that when the invoice comes through, this 4560 will be applied automatically for us. So now I'm just going to come in here and do some things that would happen in the background, whether depending on how you're using your shipment, pick and pack. So we'll post a packing slip for this. Hit OK. Oh, was not expecting credit management to impact us here. That did not happen yesterday. So let me just manage this really quickly and release this.
That's live demos, right?
That's right. That's a live demo for you, regardless of how many times no matter how many times you do the preparation work for
That's
it,
right.
it'll let you know, do you really know what you're doing there in the system? So let's just release that from credit management. So, and that could be another, protocol that you have in place for your company is maybe you have some type of credit limit or whatever the case may be, and that's why you're requiring them to have, to make prepayments. But as you can see here now, my packing slip is posted, so I'm good to go there. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to invoice. And of course, before we invoice, we want to click the supply prepayment button. And so we have the supply prepayment. We want to select it, and we'll just apply the entire amount for demo purposes, and we'll click the apply prepayments. So that apply prepayments comes into place, and now we just want to post our final invoice, right, for our customer. So we click invoice here, and due to time constraints and all that, we won't worry about any kind of printing and all that stuff, right? So we hit OK. And hit OK. So now there's a background process that's happening here. It's called the automated prepayment settlement posting background process, and that's within your within system administration. Just so you're aware, again, another configuration that you have to be aware of in your process automations. Here under background processes, you'll have this here, right? This automated prepayment settlement posting, and this is going to be running and working in the background while that happens. And what that basically is doing is once that runs in the background, your prepayment's going to be applied. These are going to be all done, and that's going to post that 4560 to that 9,000 amount. So when I go to my all customers view, when I go to my all customers view for this customer, you can see the amount is 15,200, and now that amount has been automatically applied. So by the time you get to this process, it's already happened for you. And that's just one of the minor steps in D365 where they're moving towards having a lot more things in the background automation area where you can have things get processed automatically. So that's a cool feature that has just come out within with this new version that, again, prepayments have been applicable in AR functions before, but they haven't been quite as connected as this that we're seeing now that was similar to the procurement process. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next slide in the asset leasing area. So let's go here. So now this is a new feature in asset leasing that allows you to be able to identify your sales tax groups with your sales tax with your lease with your asset lease books within D365. So when you want to have the vendor be automatically, when you want to pay your vendor and have sales tax automatically calculated, if you don't have it defined on your vendor, then no sales tax is calculated. But if you have it on your lease book and you're going to be applying this, the sales tax to your lease book, when you have those predefined, as you see here in the screenshot, then the system will automatically update your vendor sales tax groups for you in that area. I'm not going to do a demonstration of this just because I know we're kind of under some time constraints, so we're going to keep moving forward with some of the other features. But this is one that is applicable to your asset leasing books when you're processing asset leases and different transactions associated with that. When it's already predefined on the asset lease, it will automatically update for you. If it's not predefined, or if you just have it defined on your vendor, then it will take the priority for the vendor. So the vendor is the priority on like a transaction or a liability or expense transaction that's associated with your asset lease. And then this is the secondary. Okay, let's move forward, Aaron. Another new feature that's tied to the asset leasing function is the a cancel function. So before you had to, when you were canceling your leases, you had to reverse out all transactions. Well, now there's actually a new feature within D365 that's enabled through feature management, where you can do what's called a cancel option through your termination proposal. When you create a termination proposal in D365 for your asset lease, now there's an option to hit cancel. So that way the actual lease itself gets canceled and transactions are reversed automatically for you. So now we have an opportunity to leverage D365 and not be in a situation where we have to do a lot of manual transactions, make sure that we have, the reversing entries are debited and credited correctly. The system does it for you and it automatically backs out those transactions when you go through with the cancel option in asset leasing. Okay. The next thing that we're going to talk about is in the bank management module. So the bank management module has a couple of performance improvements. One of the primary performance improvements has to do with the bank transactions list page. So this new feature, which is actually done with a parameter, it allows the system to it gives you default filters on your bank transaction screenshots. So for my customers and clients that have hundreds, maybe tens and hundreds of thousands of transactions because you've been on D365 for a couple of years now, and this form can take quite some time to load. This new filter has the form open up in blank, and then you can set your different filtering requirements, date requirements, document type like checks or deposit slips and so on, and that way the form loads a lot faster, and it just reduces some of the time constraints or the eating up of your time when it comes to trying to do analysis on your banking transactions and finding those transactions. So this is a new feature that's going to be available to you in 10.0.44 on your bank transactions page. And again, going back to Microsoft's goal and direction of automating and performance improvement to make things more streamlined for you. The next function that is available is going to be in your bank foreign currency revaluation. So again, process automation is the goal here, where not just for credit and collections, not just for accounts payable, not just for general ledger, but now within the end-to-end process of bank foreign currency revaluation and your end-to-end banking automation processes. This process is now available to you in the new version of D365, where you can do your foreign currency revaluations and have those run in the background for more automation that you can apply to your business. The next feature within bank management has to do with priority settlement. So this is something that I'm going to demonstrate really quickly to show where now what was available before in D365 for just the AR side of the house for priority settlement for customer invoices is now available in D365 for accounts payable transactions and vendor payments. So let me take the screen share here real quick, Aaron. Let me know if you guys can see my screen so we don't run into the previous issue.
You're good, Brandon.
Awesome. So like I said, here I'm gonna go navigate to our AP module and go up under setup and go to our parameters. And now this new feature that is available to us now has in the settlement area, we have automatic, not just automatic settlement, but now we have the priority settlement where when you're using automatic settlement, you can now leverage the priorities of how you want those transactions to be settled. So if you want to leverage due date, transaction amount, transaction date, or voucher, you can do those functions in here by defining or deciding how do you want to manage those transactions that are due to your vendors. This was a feature that was not available before, so it required, yeah, you had automatic settlement available to you, but you couldn't dictate how do you want to pay those transactions. You want to pay those transactions based on their oldest due date or their newest due date, right? Whether they be descending or ascending. So what that looks like now is if we go into, for example, let me go create a vendor payment journal and go new, and I'll open up this vendor on the back side as well. So if we go to this vendor called property management, you'll see they've got, you know, a number of different open balance transactions that we would pay off. So if we come in here and we select property management as our vendor, and let's just say we'll, you know, they're going to make a $15,000 payment because they have a whole bunch of past due transactions, for example. We don't even have to select the invoices that they're going to pay because they just want to pay them off. And we'll change this to electronic so we don't have to wait on generating an actual check. And we'll post. And so what that feature does now, if you're familiar with it on the AR side, is that now it leverages that same functionality, but it leverages that same functionality on the AP side. And what that means is under our vendor transactions now, this $15,000, when I refresh the screen, based on my configurations, it automatically settles that amount and it clears out my previous transactions. So these previous transactions that had these big balances in them, it starts to take those down. So if you want to have it based on the, you know, do the oldest to the newest or the newest to the oldest, smallest to largest amounts, you can do that and you have that flexibility in order to do that in the system. Okay, I know we're kind of right up against it because I know Michael also has some time that he's dedicated for his presentation. So I'm going to zoom through one more example that I thought was a really cool feature that had to do with the credit and collections, and we're just going to go right into it. So in the credit and collections module, if you're familiar with being able to use interest codes, before on the create interest notes function, you were not able to leverage general journal transactions that you posted in the system for your customer. So what I mean by that is, right, your customer has invoices, your customer has, you know, interest that you might have compounded on top of interest. Well, now you have general journal transactions that could be an invoice to a customer, and you want to be able to process that invoice accordingly based on, you know, that customer's past due. And it's not because they have an actual free text invoice or a sales order customer invoice. You actually can process it through a general journal. So now when you go into D365, for example, and you use the general ledger journal to process a transaction against a customer. So if we go in here and we go to lines, and I have this customer who is called Curbside Mining, and they have an invoice that we're going to apply for $500, and it's going to be due on May 1st. So if I go ahead and post this invoice, okay, so now when I want to create, and let me go to this customer's account so I can just show you what we're working with. So here under transactions for my customer, Curbside Mining, you can see that they have a past due invoice. And so what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to go into my create credit and collections, go to create interest notes. We want to go from due dates from, let's just say 4/1 to 5/31. Oops. And I want to just use this customer so I don't get a whole bunch of transactions that we have to try to filter through. So just bear with me here. And we'll change this to curbside mining. We say OK. And we use the posting profile from our account and say OK. Interest calculation is created. We won't worry about going through the posting process because at that point, it's really just a matter of posting the interest note and reviewing it. But what I want to highlight is that now, because we did a general journal instead of an invoice, we now have our calculated interest amount based on this new feature that is in D365. So that's like a really cool feature when it comes to being able to process your interest notes and including those types of transactions. Let me come back to the PowerPoint and just go through a couple of other slides that I had on deck. I wanted to do a presentation or a demo on one other feature, but it'll take us a little bit of time. So this was just a screenshot of that. The other cool feature that you have here was in fixed assets. I really like this one. It's being able to do an adjustment and have that adjustment reflected in your fixed asset when you do inventory close. So if you're familiar with the inventory management process and using inventory close, you can purchase a fixed asset through a purchase order, or you can do an acquisition through an inventory to fixed asset journal. And when you have whatever the value of that asset is, let's just say it's $3,000 and it's already been invoiced, you're coming up on inventory close and you need to be able to do an adjustment for that acquisition amount. You can create your adjustment, run your recalculation, and the system will automatically post that adjustment amount to the subledger within the fixed asset. That wasn't available for you in 10.43 or other previous versions. And now that amount is automatically posted to the fixed asset. So now no need to go in and do a manual adjustment for that fixed asset value. You can do your posting as you see here that I have highlighted. You would have your recalculation. So after you do and then when you do your inventory close, then those amounts are reflected in the subledger. So that's another feature that, when you go and have an inventory process with your fixed assets, you can then highlight that and leverage that feature within D365. Let's go to the next slide, Aaron. And then here's another one where we can do budget depreciation proposals, but have those running in the background across multiple legal entities. So as you can see beforehand, there wasn't a menu item to be able to do this. Now there's a menu item where you can select multiple legal entities, have it run by default, and have your budget depreciation proposal running in the background. So again, getting to a point where you can start to have things teed up and configured in the beginning and when you set up your environment or when you're setting up your module, and then having those things run in the background on a batch job is where the automation and having to do less fingers to keys in the system is going to be beneficial to your team. With that being said, there's a whole list of other items in the deck here. We're just going to kind of move on from all these so we can give Michael Kavanaugh his due time to talk about some of the supply chain features. And thank you guys for your attention and your time.
Thank you for that, Brandon. As you mentioned, my name is Michael Kavanaugh. I'm a senior supply chain architect here at Avantiico, and I'm going to be going through the supply chain updates that are part of 1044. There's numerous finance updates, as we kind of just saw from how many we were just going through here. The supply chain side is a little bit lighter this time in 1044. However, there is some very high impact updates that we do want to go through. So we'll be demoing a few of those here. So Melanie, you can move on to the next slide. So the first one here has to do with master planning, and this is one that we did want to demo, so I'll be sharing my screen here in just a second. But this has to do with some additional functionality that was added to the plan filters that you can apply to your master plans. So previously, I'm going to go and share my screen here. I'll just get the OK, make sure everybody's able to see that. Is everybody able to see? Got some thumbs up, got some hot nods, we're good. All right. So previously with our master plans, we were able to apply plan filters to those, but they all had to be item based, meaning all your filters had to be based around the item. You could run a plan for specific items or groups of items, but that was it. What they added here with this new feature is now against the plan, if we go take a look at one of these plans, against the plan filter, we now have additional options regarding inventory dimensions. So the way this would most likely be used is you might filter this based on a site or a warehouse. So you can now run a plan specifically for a specific warehouse or site, as well as you have your normal item number filtering that you can apply to a plan. So I have a couple of examples here to show you. So here in this Contoso environment, we have a master plan. This one I ran without a filter associated to it. I do have another plan here I'll show you with a filter on site number 2, and you can see what that looks like. So with the master plan without the filter, it has everything you would expect here. We have, if we were to group these planned orders down below by site, we could see that there are quite a few for site 1, site 2, site 3. It runs for everything, right? Just as you'd expect. But if I go to my plan that I've created here for master plan site 2 that I ran for site 2, what we'll see is that it ran specifically for site 2. However, the thing I want to point out here is there are some orders that it creates for other sites. And the reason it does this is because they are tied to orders in site 2. So for example here, if I was to look at something in site 1, and I went and looked at this planned order and looked at the multi-level pegging associated to it, this planned order is fulfilling a safety stock requirement at site 2. So it runs for site 2 and anything tied to the requirements at site 2. So that's how that plan filter works. Okay, let's go back to the slide deck, please. Oh, I'm going to another one, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in just a second again. But this one, a lot of people have a lot of interest in this because this is our new Copilot agents. So what Microsoft has released as part of 1044 is what they call the supplier communication agents, which is actually 2 different agents in the system here. So let me go ahead and share my screen to show those. Okay. And now the first thing I'm going to show you here, and again, let's just make sure we got thumbs up, we're able to see. Good. Yes, okay, great. So the first thing you're going to see here is actually a new home page called the immersive home page, we'll call it. This is actually controlled whether or not you want to see this when you first log in or when you go to your home screen by going to your user options, going to preferences, and you now have a new option here for the initial page called the immersive home page. When you're on the immersive homepage, it's similar to other home pages we've had in the past where it's going to show you work items associated to you. It's going to show you your workspaces, but this one has been integrated with all the Copilot and AI functionality to show you any work items that have spawned from that as well as what activity those agents have taken. So you'll see a couple new things here. So for example, under my work items here, I actually have a work item to review draft emails that our Copilot agent has drafted for us. So before we go into that, let me just go into the setup of what these agents are doing, but I at least wanted to show you what this immersive home page looks like. So as part of the supplier communications agent feature that's enabled, there's 2 different agents that Microsoft has released to us. There's one called send follow-up emails to vendors with the supplier communications agent. And there's one called speed up updates and purchase orders. So what these do is the first one here is going to look at purchase orders in D365 and determine if we need to send follow-up emails to our vendors based on certain criteria that we get to determine. So I'm going to open this up a little bit and show you the editing of this. So we get to instruct our Copilot agent to do a couple different things. So we can tell it to draft an email or automatically send emails, and we can have it follow up on unconfirmed purchase orders or delayed purchase orders. So an unconfirmed purchase order, you might be responding because maybe you have vendor collaboration enabled and a vendor hasn't responded to a PO within a certain amount of time. You might want to automatically draft or have the system draft an email for your review that you can send out that you can just hit the button to send. Delayed POs would just be, they haven't delivered yet, it's past the receipt date, and we want to inquire to the vendor what's going on. So you have some other filters here that you can do. You can send it by vendor or send it by purchase order. You can tell the system what type of tone to use: formal, casual, urgent, non-urgent, and you can set up multiple queries here of different You know, if we're this late, we can be a little bit more urgent. If we're before that, we don't have to be as much. You can also tell the system what fields to include in the email that it drafts. If I click on this, it's a big list of fields. And then here we can set our criteria for what type of POs we want this to actually be looking for. You know, in this right now, we have it set up where it's looking at, this is unconfirmed emails. So this is kind of the vendor collaboration example where it's been unconfirmed, but the receipt date is anywhere within this period of time from tomorrow to up to 60 days from now. So it finds those emails. We can also include a signature here. And then what it does, I'm going to go back here and review our draft emails, is it's constantly scanning our purchase orders. And what it does is it creates follow-up emails for me. So here I have one for Acme office supplies. Here's the purchase order. If I scroll down, it is drafted just kind of a generic email to Acme office supplies to let them know that we'd like an update on this order. So you can play around with this more. We can give it access to more fields to include in here. We can change its tone, but this is Copilot actually generating this email, and then I can go ahead and send it if I feel it's good, or I can make some edits to it before I send. Okay, so that's the first agent. The second agent is speed up updates in purchase orders with the supplier communications agent. This one, I don't have an example to show you right now, but what this does is it scans specific mailboxes. So you have to give it access to a mailbox. And it's scanning those for any potential updates that the vendor has sent to you regarding your purchase orders. And it tries to get that information, summarize it, and present it to you in a way that you can see it and potentially make updates to those purchase orders. For example, if a vendor is requesting that we shift dates or change quantities or something along those lines, it can grab that information, present it to you, and you can take action directly within D365. Now, one thing I do want to just be clear about with these Copilot agents, they are currently in preview. They are described as production-ready previews, the two that I've shown you today, which means they're okay for a production environment. Microsoft does recommend that you can have them in a production environment. However, they are subject to a separate terms and agreements because they are still technically preview features. They describe them as production-ready preview features. And again, this has to be on 1044 to be able to enable these. Okay. I'm going to go back to the slide deck.
I'm just going to mention briefly, if you do have to look at the link about what's coming out in wave 1 and wave 2, or wave 1 so far, you will see a heavy interest and rollout of a lot of Copilot features. Again, a lot of them are still in preview and they're a little bit later in the 6 months, but there are a lot of interesting things coming out to take a look at.
Thanks for that. Okay, we're going to speed through a couple more updates on the supply chain side, and I have one more demo to show you at the end here. So this one here, this is actually a very simple one, but has been heavily requested, and that is to change your color or contrast settings on the manufacturing execution console. Very simple. You can have it log in, and then you can, when you log in, you can select your setting here. You have dark, light, high contrast, low contrast. So that you now have the ability to do that. Going to move on to the next one. There's a couple other production interface updates here that actually improve on functions that I showed in the 1043 demo a couple months ago. So as part of 1043, they allow you within the interface to adjust BOM consumption when they're reporting on the manufacturing execution interface. Now you have the ability to also add and delete lines. Previously, you could only edit quantities, but they've added some additional functionality to add and delete lines much more easily. Okay, move on to the next. Similarly, also within that, if you ever had, if you had enabled tracked components, which is also enabled in 1043, where through the interface, you can actually record which batch numbers or serial numbers you're consuming or producing, whether it's the finished good or the raw material. They've just kind of improved the interface to be able to do that. It was a little bit difficult when it was first rolled out in 43, but 44 adds some improvements to that to more easily scan those and associate those to the proper items. Okay, and then finally on production control, through the interface as well, they added some additional functionality to be able to report scrap against multiple orders or jobs at once. Previously, you had anytime you reported scrap through the interface, it was just one at a time. Now, if you have multiple jobs that you're technically working on, you can actually report scrap against multiple of them from a single screen. So they're just trying to improve convenience for your users within manufacturing execution. Okay, and the final one here, I'm going to try to speed through this as quick as I can. I know we have 5 minutes. This one I'm going to try to demo. This one has to do with tracking dimension control when picking in the warehouse device. So previously, and some of you may know this, whenever you're on the mobile device and you're picking a batch number or serial number or something along those lines, and if there's ever a single batch number or serial number within the location you're picking, D365 tries to be helpful and just skips right past it. It doesn't even ask you. It doesn't say, what's the batch number that you're picking? It just says, well, I already know what it is. It's the only one in the location, which really kind of interrupts the flow for a lot of users. They're always used to scanning it, for example. D365 now gives you the ability to be able to force them to enter that information. So I'm going to share my screen again. I just got to hide the thing above here and get over to where this is set up. So I'm in warehouse management parameters. I'm going to scroll down, and here there's a new section called mobile device menu item display inventory dimensions. Now currently this functionality to force you to scan this only exists for sales order work. Doesn't exist for transfer orders or other types of picking right now. So currently it is only rolled out for sales orders. But here we can tell the system whether or not we want to force that or not. So we can go back to hide tracking dimension control, which was the default way that D365 worked prior to 1044, or we can turn on display tracking dimension control. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to go do a quick sales order pick just to kind of show this functionality. What I'm showing right now is I'm going to be picking this item here called the foam reacting agent. I have a batch on hand called batch 0001. It's in the bulk location. I have some of them on hand, but the thing I'm showing here is there's only a single batch. That is it. So normally it wouldn't even ask me the batch number. So if I go back to my picking work, okay, so I have my picking work here. I bring in my mobile device. I'm going to scan my work. It's going to ask me a target license plate. I could always have this auto-generated depending on my processes, but then next thing it asks is, please give me the batch number. There's only one batch number. I can have it suggest the batch number here just like I could in previous versions, but it does now ask me the batch number. So that's the improvement right there. So now we have a consistent picking process regardless of how many of that exist in that location. Okay, back to you, Melanie. I think I just have a couple things to speed through real quick and then I am done. Yep, a couple other things on 1044 I'll just make a quick mention about. There is an improvement within the asset management section where there's actually a material check that you can run on maintenance work orders for your fixed assets. So that's been added in 1044. And master planning added some additional functionality regarding pegging of orders to items that have shelf life control. You can now peg different batches against a single demand order, whereas previously it was one-to-one. So a couple improvements there. But I am done, and leave it to you guys to wrap it up.
Excellent. All right, just preparing a slide forward here. I think probably 2 slides, just briefly. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Yes. So I'll skip this and just go through here real quick because you just have a few minutes, and I think some of us can stay on if to try to answer some of the questions as well. Just lastly, as you can see, there's a lot of amazing new features coming out. AI, the immersive home screen, and there's even more coming out as you look at what's coming out in the next release with Wave 1 as well. So we do want to offer, though, if you're not a Avantiico Managed Services customer currently, and some of this is confusing, there's a lot of moving parts, we were happy to work with you to put together a release schedule for you all the way through October of 2026. If you're a current Managed Services customer, you're probably familiar with seeing this, although we've only have them out to, I think, October 2025 right now. These just got recently released. And we'll go through with you, talk about your busy seasons, of what version you're on now, review your Microsoft Lifecycle Services settings, and then collaborate with you to put together a schedule so you know what days and what times you should take these updates all the way through and help you plan out with your team, testing, and things like that. So if you're interested in that, you can just type in roadmap in the Teams chat. The call, again, there's no obligation for this. We just work with you for an initial about 45-minute call to capture the information. We will put together the roadmap for you and then have a follow-up call maybe a couple days later maybe 15 minutes just to present the roadmap and answer any follow-up questions. So if there's interest in that, just let us know. And from there, we can open it up for questions. We'll be on for a little bit. I know some people might have to drop off right here at the end of the hour, but we appreciate everybody attending, and we'll be around here to answer questions.
Awesome. And feel free to pop yourself off mute if you do have any questions. Yeah. I see your hand up there. Feel free to pop off mute and just address it directly to the panel.
So I really like viewing these webinars and everything that you're covering. Because we usually have so much for finance, would you all consider separating the supply chain from finance and holding a longer webinar, one for each in the future?
That's good feedback. Yeah, we're that may be something we can look at, because there are these updates. The velocity of updates in each update is just increasing. There used to be 10 updates a year, then they dropped it to 7, then it went to 4, and now, but the velocity of the updates hasn't decreased; it's actually increased. So there's more and more in each of these, especially around Copilot and such. So that's a good feedback. We may consider doing that and maybe be able to apply a 45-minute or an hour to each of these.
Yeah, I would like
Great,
to
yeah.
say, Chris, that's actually a really great idea, Tanya, because particularly for the features that came out on the finance side, all of these features I could have potentially shown a live screenshot of how it works, and that could have easily gone an hour. So that's an excellent idea, and thank you.
Yeah, it reduces our investigation time on, does this apply to us or not? Seeing a quick demo, just like you did on some of the ones you highlighted, can help us determine, like, does this apply to us? Do we need to consider it? So really appreciate it. We really like these demos. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Cool. It looks like, pardon me, Johnny popped in a question too, just in the chat about 1044 bug fixes for the license count in PPAC. The question is that if that is a correct assumption that is coming in 1044.
I think I saw that in the list, but we didn't highlight it. Whether it's actually working as intended, I think we'd still need to do more investigation. There were definitely some challenges in the license evaluation and Power Platform Admin Center, where I know one of the complaints was that if you were over licensed, it still counted you as being deficient. So in other words, if you only needed, say, like a Teams level license, but you had an enterprise level license, it would tell you you're deficient because you didn't have the license that exactly matched, even though you could potentially be over licensed, and it would still consider that deficiency. So there are definitely some challenges still in the license count, but they may have improved some of it in 44.
Perfect. And I think there was one question that came up. Oh, sorry.
So I just wanted more. I don't know if you have more on that from the licensing perspective, but that's what I was seeing.
About to reply to Johnny in the chat. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. And there was another in the chat that was related to licensing. When Kavanaugh, when you were doing the agents in the Copilot demo, it was a question about a need for additional licensing for those Copilots. So, I mean, ties into a similar licensing question.
I don't have that information right now. Yeah, that's something we'll need to take a look at.
Definitely. And I mean, in regards to licensing too, we do have, we popped it in the chat earlier, right? But we do have the, specific licensing webinar that we've been running several episodes for. So don't hesitate to sign up for that one. I think people have been getting a lot of value out of that.
Also, there was a couple questions that if you missed the 10.043 update, because when you take 44, you'll also get all the updates from 43, although the release notes are not cumulative, although what the features are. We are just working on getting just a quick fix on it. Here's the link to do it, but maybe wait until the end of the day. I think, Aaron, we just need to re-upload the video, maybe. I think
I'll share 1044. We'll make sure to actually just put the 1044 and the 1043 video links into the email that we send out once we've edited the recording for this. So to make sure everybody who's attended here gets them both. Yeah.
And I think there was a question whether you'll get the presentation. Yes, we will send that out to you.
Yeah, we can make sure the decks are attached as well. Yeah, got you. And Andrew, thank you for the kind words.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. This is the we have an amazing team here with Brandon and Michael. This is essentially the level of expertise you receive on our managed services team, as well as doing implementations with us. These are great representatives of the skill sets we have at Avantiico. Again, if anybody's interested in learning more about our managed services programs, happy to talk with you about that as well. This is kind of the level of support and expertise we have on the team. We have a 100% US and Canadian based team. We cover your D365 finance and supply chain, as well as customer service, sales, and many other applications as well. So it'd be great to talk to anybody that has an interest in talking about these.
I think maybe one last question from Johnny that just popped up there into the chat. Not sure if you see it. Is there a deadline when the CHE environment will be migrated to unified development using Power Platform?
I don't think I've heard a definite date. There's rumors of dates and such, but I haven't heard a set date when that's going to happen. I know we are going to be looking at moving off of LCS. The exact date hasn't been set in stone that I know of yet. As you can see, there's a few dates that Microsoft has published this year that have kind of pushed out a little bit more. And I think there was one about the licensing enforcement. One of the other things to keep on the radar is the enforcement around use of database capacity as well. We're just in looking at a lot of users of D365. If you have a lot of volume of data, but a relatively low user count, your allocation of space is relatively low for your environment. But many customers that have been on D365 for some period of time or generate a lot of data, you can have some challenges there. And the current pricing from Microsoft on additional space is pretty cost prohibitive. So that's always a thing that's to look at. We do offer both licensing reviews, and we also provide database size evaluations as well as options from Avantiico.
Awesome. Well, I think we covered everything that came through. I appreciate your time. I mean, Chris, if you wanna send us off with a little thank you, or I think great job across the board, everybody.
Yeah, of course. Just thank you everybody for attending. It's great to see a great attendance of these. We've seen every quarter that the attendance is growing. I really think this is something that's needed, really in the industry, because Microsoft puts out so many changes, and there's just not really a great way to distill down all these hundreds of updates and get some expertise in looking at what those are. So we really encourage you to continue to join these. We'll have them every quarter before the service updates come out. We'll also have the deck sent out as well. And really appreciate everybody attending today. Feel free to follow up with additional questions. We'll get an email out to you with the deck, as well as links to the 1044 and 1043 video, or at least the decks from 43. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.